let's talk about this secret, what they're hiding about BlackRock. This is another video I wanted to show you guys. I really love this one. SEC drops XRP case, doors open for banking and ETFs. This is the biggest partnerships in the US are now finally open. They were not open before because of the lawsuit, ongoing lawsuit. They couldn't do anything. They were just waiting for this lawsuit to be over. Again, banks did not want to work with them. They probably lost millions of dollars of revenue. The lawsuit cost $500 million. But with that over, we have a sky high ceiling.
SEC officially dropping their case on XRP. This has opened XRP to several doors in both banking and ETFs, specifically one company, and that is BlackRock. In this interview, Whitney Webb talks about BlackRock and Bitcoin, and I'm going to explain how all of this relates to XRP.
Like when the Fed printed a bunch of money during COVID and gave it to like BlackRock to manage, like was that incompetence? When they sort of get caught or start to get caught for something corrupt, they'll be like, oh, don't look any further. We're just really stupid, you know? But if you consider just like the massive amount of wealth transfer that's happened in the past 20 years to like the people at the very top, obviously, well, I think it's obvious, but I mean, that can't all have been because of incompetence. You know?
So there's a lot of shady things happening behind the scenes. BlackRock owns 3% of Bitcoin's total supply, and this is roughly 662,000 Bitcoins. That amount is more than MicroStrategy, owned by Michael Saylor, and they own about 600,000 Bitcoin.
They own 3% of Bitcoin because they're selling Bitcoin to the users. They don't own actually this Bitcoin. They hold it for other users. That's a big misconception that people have with BlackRock. They think BlackRock owns that. They don't own it. They get a fee for holding it. It's called an ETF. So just wanted to add this in for Sam. Obviously, he has great videos, but XRP, once they have an XRP ETF, they will be forced to buy so much XRP if BlackRock gets its own XRP. Again, if you want to sell someone through an ETF, you need to hold it. You need to hold it as a company. BlackRock needs to hold this XRP, and they also need to get it in a legitimate way by buying it, for example. So they will buy, for example, $100, $200 million of XRP so they can sell back to users. And this could go up to $1 billion if there's $1 billion of inflows.
The dollar amount of those 662,000 Bitcoin is about $87 billion. And this doesn't even include their Ethereum holdings, which is about $1 billion worth of Ethereum. And they also have $10 billion worth of Ethereum in assets. So this is huge for XRP for a couple reasons. XRP is essentially the third largest cryptocurrency, and it has a lot of volume and liquidity because it's used in peer-to-peer transaction, making it valuable to an ETF manager like BlackRock.
There's a similar effort in crypto and specifically with Bitcoin to criminalize mixers and criminalize any sort of service that affords you increased financial privacy. Where they want to...
I feel like that the big thing is right now, 2021 and 2016, it was all about privacy tokens, being private in crypto. They didn't realize most of the money for crypto comes from the regulation and government. Like 90% of the biggest money wealth transfer in crypto is going to be from the governments actually legalizing crypto by inviting all of these retail investors in to invest into crypto itself. So again, that's just my opinion, but it's very clear that what crypto is trying to be right now is basically be another stock market, which, you know, the original holders won't be happy, but it is what's going to increase the most value for crypto as well.
They're not just going to be like, let's do this now. I mean, people aren't going to go along with it. So they need some sort of event that gets people angry and afraid and panicking in order to stick it through. So basically, this is going to be folded into, I guess, what I would call a Cyber Patriot Act. The Patriot Act being the legislation pushed through in the U.S. after September 11th, 2001. Right. A lot of which wasn't necessarily related to anything to do with 9/11, but was a huge power grab by the state taking advantage opportunistically of the panic after 9/11. So they need some sort of event like that to ram all this stuff through. But the plans have been on the books for a very long time, and it's not just the US, it's really everywhere. I mean, I think in the UK you have something called like the Online Safety Bill. They'll say, oh, it's about protecting children. But really it's about ending encryption, which law enforcement in the UK and the US have been trying to do so hard for years and years and years. I mean, Bill Barr who was attorney general under Trump in the US, was like, that was his main policy goal, was to end encryption. And he talked about it all the time, but a lot of people didn't really pay attention, I guess. So in terms of what we're talking about with government, regulation of the internet and all of this, it's coming, right? We're already seeing the first signs of it here. There's an obvious push to censor more speech and link people's speech to their ID and have it more surveillable than ever before. Gutting encryption, why do they want to do that? So they can read everything that you say and all your transactions, follow them all.
So really important what she just said here, a lot to unpack. We already know that BlackRock owns about 3% of Bitcoin's total supply. If BlackRock was to ever sell that 3% at once, it will result in Bitcoin dropping several percentages. The entire purpose of Bitcoin is to be decentralized and to allow the money to go to the people.
Now, this is what people don't understand. BlackRock will not sell. It's going to be the people who own BlackRock's ETFs that are going to be selling. And this can happen. Like, if this has happened in 2021, like, a lot of people sold and the price crashed. So XRP is the next target for accumulation. Like, they're going to be buying XRP as soon as it lists for ETF. And I feel like with how much money they could be making, it is almost certain that BlackRock is coming in.
And I believe the next cryptocurrency that's going to be impacted by BlackRock is going to be XRP. For a long time, BlackRock stayed away from XRP because there was an ongoing battle with the SEC. And obviously, if you have a battle with the SEC, the largest asset manager is not going to invest in an ETF for Ripple, which is the company behind XRP. But now that's out the window, there's a huge possibility that they're going to try to accumulate a vast majority of XRP. And there's a huge incentive to do so because XRP has a lot of volume and liquidity because of the sheer amount of transactions that go through every day. At the end of the day, XRP's goal is to transform the banking system and get integrated into it and also be a global competitor in peer-to-peer transactions. This means that there will be a lot of volume in XRP.
And essentially
I fully agree. A lot of volume, because that's once the Bitcoin dominance drops, XRP's volume is coming in. All of this money from Bitcoin will have to go somewhere.
Seeing here is an effort to use technology to entrench that in unprecedented ways so that there's no more need to worry about the peasants revolting, right? I think that's ultimately what it comes down to. So as an example, this push for a regulated internet and the end of online anonymity and all of that is directly related to the fact that it's a mathematical inevitability that our debt-based monetary system will collapse at some point, and that the banking system, particularly Wall Street, and its global equivalents have engaged in an unprecedented degree of malfeasance and corruption and insane financial gambling activities. And just like 2008, right? That's going to explode at some point. But in 2008, people knew it was the banks and they were mad at the banks, weren't they? So if you're the banks and that's going to happen again.
Let's just pause there for a second. So in 2008, the banking system failed. There's obviously a clear problem with the banking system. It has failed numerous times. It hasn't just failed once. It has happened time and time again. There's obviously a clear solution to this problem, which is XRP. When using the XRP platform, you no longer have to rely on the banks or any other platforms that the banks use, such as the SWIFT platform. When XRP is integrated into the banking system, it's XRP solely by itself. And it's not just going to be just one country that's using XRP. It's going to be globally. There's going to be countries all around the world that will be using XRP. And the probability of XRP failing is a lot lower than the banking system failing.
So this makes a lot of sense. Like, how can you compare, obviously respect to Sam Trades, but the 2008 banking collapse failed because we gave so much loans that we shouldn't be giving. I don't understand how XRP would solve that. So what XRP solves right now is fast transfers, and the US government, and all of that 2018 banking collapse is much more complicated than people might seem. It literally collapsed in a short version is because there were so many of these loans and credits that we couldn't repay, or the banks couldn't repay. So XRP couldn't solve anything from 2008. Even if XRP existed in 2008, it would still crash regardless, because all XRP would do is make these transfers more simple. But if you guys have any different opinions about this, let me know down in the comments below. I definitely hope I'm wrong.
And I think it's obvious that BlackRock realizes this, and they're just waiting for the perfect opportunity to start accumulating XRP like they have done with Bitcoin and Ethereum.
BlackRock just realizes there's a lot of trading volume and money to be made. You know, they're already building on Ethereum for the real world assets. Why are they building real world assets? They know that digitalization is the future and they can make money from it because everybody will want to buy a fraction of a something.
So if you're the banks and you know that's going to happen again, and you're in bed with the intelligence agencies and the government, or in the case of the US, you own the central bank, right? You don't want that to happen again. So how do you find a way to blame somebody else for the financial system imploding? And when you bring the financial system back, what do these people, people like Jamie Dimon and all these top bankers, like what is their ideal scenario for like money and how people interact with and use money? Well, being able to grift as much as you want and take as much as you want from the people under you without them knowing or complaining, because I mean, that's what they've been doing for decades, right? Wall Street. So they want to keep doing that. They don't want to change their behavior. So they want to find a way to be able to steal from the underclass as much as possible without the underclass complaining or revolting, and control how they spend their money, and control their financial and other behavior so that they can maintain their place on the top. So what we're having is the engineering of a neo-feudal society where you have the small upper class and then a massive underclass that the upper class can manipulate and control and do whatever they want with as they see fit. And so that's what I think the ambition of a lot of these various initiatives we're seeing for unprecedented control and surveillance are aimed at. And the goal is to use technology, whether it's AI or any of these other emerging technologies, to be able to do that, because obviously there's so much more of us than there are of them. And so in order to scale what they want to scale.
Isn't that what happened with GameStop? Like people bought the stock, literally. Like same is happening with XRP. People want to be fully financially independent. They bought XRP.
To be able to deal with the huge difference in size between their class and our class, they feel like, they need these emerging technologies. They need AI. And that's why I see AI as a largely negative thing, because the people that want to do this are the ones setting it up and programming it and deciding what its objectives are,
So BlackRock has not filed for spot XRP ETF, but one thing that would not surprise me is if they are accumulating XRP privately. There's a lot
I feel like if they're buying XRP privately, it's because they want to launch the XRP spot ETF. That's the main reason, because if they announce it, XRP, what's going to happen with XRP? It's going to go to $4. They're going to be forced to buy it at 25% more than before they announce it. At least in my opinion, it's going to go to $4, because if the biggest, richest company announces they buy something, look what happened with Bitcoin and Ethereum. So of course they can buy it for a bit cheaper at $1, $2, $3 instead of like announcing it and then buying it for the XRP ETF. As I told you guys, if you want to have an ETF as a company like BlackRock, you need to legally own this XRP. You need to have it in your bank or system or in a wallet, which XRP and ETFs need to do. They are fully regulated, and that's why they could be secretly buying until they join other XRP ETFs.
to unpack in this interview here, and a lot of the statements that Whitney Webb made is massive. And essentially, it's a long game for XRP. As more and more investors realize the true value of XRP, they're eventually going to purchase it. And that's what we're starting to see this year. If you want to support my content or become a community.
So yeah, you get a pretty clear idea of what's going on. But yeah, BlackRock does not own 3% of Bitcoin. They could own XRP. They are holding it for the users. Maybe they're holding maybe 1% they have themselves, but that's a completely different thing right now. And you guys do the math.